Hello, everybody. My name's Enrique, and this is.
Linda.
And today we're going to be talking to you guys about things to consider when making a big change or a move. Could be out of state or out of the country. But first, honey, let's do a podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Honey, Let's Do a Podcast. I am your host, Enrique, and this is my co host, my lovely wife.
Linda.
And today, as we said in the beginning, we're going to be talking to you about tips or things to consider when you're making a big move or a change. It could be an out of state change. Maybe you're going from one state to another in the US, or maybe it's a bigger change like leaving a country you were born in and you're trying to make a move to a different country, or like a lot of people we see here in the United States where it's a lot of people move and they move to the US. Maybe there's a better economic opportunity,
Could
better
be many
things.
reasons, to be honest.
But a lot of times it's usually they got a better chance. Maybe they're struggling in their country and they have a better chance of financial health here in the U.S. Or they have a thing they think they can aspire to more things over here. But basically, one of those big changes, right? And it could go as simple as you can make it go all the way down to as simple as just making a move from one house to another to a different house. Maybe it's a house a little further out. Maybe you were living in the city and now you're moving to a suburbs, and that's a big change for you, right? So we're talking about, you know, changes that can vary depending on the person. Maybe for you that's a big change, or maybe you consider a big change just like that, just like moving through, like, let's say you go to Europe. Yeah, that would be considered a huge change, right? Different cultures, different personalities. It's completely different to what you were born in. But basically, we want to talk about it because we went through it. We're both from Puerto Rico, and even though that's not considered a country, that's a Commonwealth, but it is kind of like a country because
It almost
it's in an
worked.
island, right? It's a different. You have to cross the ocean and the sea and all that to get to anywhere
I
else.
think it's just bigger than that because it's not just it's part of the United States, but it's not part of the United States. We have a different
Yeah, it's
language.
a territory.
It is territory.
Yeah, yeah.
And person changing from a place that have one language to a different language is very challenging.
Yeah, but we have
But at the same time, we also have some benefits, like we are American citizens since we were born, so that give us advantages, like we don't have to do visa processes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
but
that make it a little bit easier.
What I was gonna say is that a lot of people in the Puerto Rico are taught English as well. So, but there's a lot of them. Maybe
there
you
is a
might
lot
say
of
there's a
them.
lot that are not taught that, but there's a lot that are taught it. So, there's that two language barrier. A lot of people do have it over there. So making a leap for some people, or maybe 30% of the island, it's not that difficult to make the leap. Maybe there's a bigger gap. Yeah, that there is kind of difficulty. But I'm saying in terms of language barrier, I don't think that's the big issue. It's more just the thing that you're actually leaving, crossing ocean, sea to get to a different place. Now you're far away from family, you're far away from friends. It's not like easy as, oh, let me go to a different city and I just drive 2 hours and I go see you guys on the weekend. No, it's not as simple as that anymore. You're making a bigger change than that. So that's what I'm referring to. In our case, it was pretty big change. Even those things considered, it was a place where we knew the language. It was a place where we used the same currency because it's a dollar. It's
Yes.
a difference, and it's part of the U.S. like you said. So we do have the passports and citizenship and all that. So that makes the transition obviously easier than other people that have to go through visas and all that other stuff from going from other countries, which makes the transition a little harder. They got to get a work visa or apply for one or whatever the case may be, right? But in our case, we just went through it, so we thought we could give you guys some tips or some tendencies that you might encounter as you go through it. And I think my wife had a couple of things that she wanted to go through first and wanted to talk about some of the nitpicks that you guys can go through.
Yeah, and I think in our case, the main reason that we moved was because of me. So I was looking for better opportunities, better work, life opportunities, and the first thing that I looked was what are the places that I want to live? What are the places that I want to move? So I just only apply for a job on the cities that I wanted to work. and I have a list like, oh, I think my top 5 cities, and I send only and specifically to those 5 cities. And then Enrique actually helped me with the resume and preparing all the stuff that I needed. And my English was very basic when I was applying for job opportunities. He studied in a better school at that time, so his English was far better than mine. So he was able to translate some of the information that I was missing in the translating process, and just he was pretty much guiding me to understand a little bit better what the information from each of those job opportunities was referring to.
It was mainly a change for her because, I had a job over there. She was just finishing college, her degree in architecture, and she had an opportunity for a job in here in the U.S. And one of the opportunities she got was here in Houston, where we live now.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't work with that particular company anymore, but that's the one that actually got her to cross the boat. As I say,
Yes.
like cross, they take the bridge over and switch. And it was kind of like really fast. Everything happened pretty quickly. I don't think there was a lot of time to process once she got accepted or she got made an offer. Everything moved pretty fast. So we didn't have a lot of time to think. We had things to do. We had things that we had to do, in which we will talk about those things in a little bit. But basically, sometimes you have to just make the decision and just go for it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of things will happen as you go through it. But the good thing that I can say, and this is going a little bit ahead of myself, right? But the good thing I can say about us was that we were both really young. We didn't have anything, right? We didn't have any house. I was still kind of living after college, so I was still kind of living
You were
out of
living
my
with your
parents.
parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had that apartment. We were in an apartment for a little bit, but when we kind of moved back to my parents, and then you had your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But it was small. Like we didn't have a lot of things. We didn't have obviously any kids. We didn't have anything. We just had dogs. So we do have pets. That's one thing we had to consider, the pets. But there was not really anything major in us. Like obviously, if you make a move and you have 3 kids and you have a big family,
And you have a
that's
house, and
that's
you
a,
have,
that's a
you know,
way bigger thing to just make that big leap, right? So in our case, it was easier in that regard. But there's still things that it's specifically if you're a young person, you'll probably have to go through most of the things we're going because you're probably in the same boat. Maybe you just finished college. When you're in college, you're just living in a dorm or you're renting an apartment. So you're going to be in the same boat. You don't have a lot of things. You don't have a lot of big things tying you somewhere where you have to, oh, man, it's hard to leave, or, it's a lot easier to make that decision. But yeah, Linda, what were a couple of things? 'Cause I know you research a little bit about this. A couple of the tendencies or
So the first thing that you need to consider is for sure, where are you going to move? And then while you do that, you also need to plan ahead, financially speaking, because you need to know, okay, how expensive is this city that I'm moving to, or this another location? If there is a different type of currency, what is the type of currency, and what is the
what's
type
the
of life
exchange, right? What the
exactly? What
exchange
is the
rate?
exchange, and the language? Obviously, if there is a different language, and also how much money do you need to settle down and to have a backup in case something goes wrong? That's also something that you need to consider.
Yes, and talking about that, how much money you might need to settle down. When you're making the leap, a lot of times, right? I'm not talking about sometimes you don't, but a lot of times you are usually going in with a job offer.
Hmm.
A lot of times,
That's a smart
specifically,
way.
specifically if you're making a huge, like going from one country to another or something, you can't just. I mean, you can wing it, but it's not recommended for you to just go out there without anything and you just go, okay, let me just land over there and then hopefully something happens, right? Not because first of all, you're gonna need a visa, so you're gonna need a work visa or something just to get there.
Hmm.
It's not like you're just gonna enter through the door and that's it. But anyway, make sure that you ask your job, the one who's giving you that job offer, if they have any relocation finance, right? So like if you relocate or you got to move, they give you that some money for that expenses
Yes.
for moving. It's really important that you do that because sometimes companies do have it and you might not ask about it. You might not get that benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So always ask to the recruiter or who's going to be your boss or the HR, whoever it is, about that opportunities because that will help you a lot if they do have some money to give you for relocation. Maybe to pay the first couple months or maybe to just the movement, the moving company, or moving your car over there, or there's a bunch of expenses that occur when you're traveling. So that's going to give you a big chunk that you might not have to dig deep into your savings or something if they actually give you some type of benefit like that.
But also need to consider that when you move, you're gonna make a lot of expenses right away.
Yep.
Like that first week, you're gonna make a lot of expenses. Like we did, we spent
Yeah, we
like
went
two
to Target,
grands.
right? Went to
Yeah,
like Target.
yeah, we spent that week probably like 2 or 3 grands or something like that. It was just a lot of because we didn't have anything, so we need to had a bed. We just got mattresses, I think, at that time,
No,
and
no, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't have a bed frame, right?
no, we didn't
No, we
have a
didn't
bed
have a bed
frame.
frame.
No,
No, we just had the mattress.
just mattresses
Yeah.
and food and stuff for the house because we only came with luggages. We didn't have anything, so we had to buy everything.
Well, we had your car. Your car
Oh,
came
we
in, and
didn't have the car at the very beginning.
well, it came in the boat, right?
Yeah,
Like they
we
drove, they
shipped the
brought it in. We
car.
shipped the car on a
Yeah.
boat.
And that's one of the things that you need to consider. How are you going to transport in this new location? In our case, we shipped the city. I mean, sorry, we shipped the car, one of the cars, but you might not have that option because your car is too old and it doesn't even make sense.
But it also depends on what city you're going to, because let's say you go to let's say a city like New York,
If it's in the mainland and you're moving
or a
from one
big
state
city
to
in the
another
Europe or
one,
something. Some of these cities have a really good transportation system, like trains and metros
mm-hmm,
and all that stuff. For example, if you go to New York City, a lot of people don't even have a car because the subway system's so good and all this stuff, so they can really travel across New York without the need of a car, right? So again, do your research if you think that you might not need to get a car right away, because that's a big expense, right? You
mm-hmm,
think you don't need to get into a car payment, or maybe you don't transferring your cars, like it costs a big penny, right? Specifically, the bigger the transfer is for that ship, like if it has to cross the whole Atlantic Ocean to get there, it's gonna cost you a lot more than if it's just from one little place closer to the other. So that I know, but I'm saying that that's going to be a big expense in itself. It might be $5,000, 6,000. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be a big expense in itself. Or if you're just getting into a car, you're getting into a car payment and all this. So that's again a big expense. But if you do your research and you're like, hey, this city I'm going to has really good transportation system and all this, maybe you save a couple. Maybe you can live without a car for like a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is.
and
Right?
also consider for how long are you thinking to stay in that place. That will be another decision maker into this,
Yes.
into deciding if I'm going to buy a new car or
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just
That's
going to
important.
buy
Or
an old car or something like that.
also, when you get there, if you want to keep on renting or you want to eventually buy a house, or yeah.
Exactly. So I will personally, that's another thing that I'm going to talk a little bit. But another thing you need to consider is where exactly are you going to move within this new location? You need to do your research because you don't want to move to a bad location, an area that is not that safe. And also, you don't want to move to an area that is so far from where you are apparently going to work, if that's the case, where your activities are going to be around. So that's another thing to consider is like, where are you going to move? What is the process so with that when you get there, you have a place to stay, and you can maybe you buy a new house right away at the very beginning. Maybe you decide, oh, I'm going to rent for a little bit, look around, decide which neighborhoods I like, and then make a decision if I'm going to buy a house or not. Or maybe you are going to be there for a few years, 2, 3 years, and then move to a different location because this is just a stepping stone.
Yeah, it's just a job stepstone, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get a different position later.
Yeah. So it really depends on what is your specific situation. But in our case, in our situation, I knew right away I wanted to move to one of the cities was Houston. It was I think my second choice. Um, and the place that I was working, I really, really liked. But we didn't know the city. We didn't know what were the best areas. So we opted to rent at the very beginning. And also because we didn't know how expensive for the houses or what we were going to be able to afford and stuff like that. So we wanted to allow us the opportunity
Well,
to,
let's be honest. We just couldn't afford a house at the moment either.
most likely, we couldn't afford a
No,
house.
we couldn't afford a house at the moment.
We were so
That's
young.
pretty simple. It's not. I mean, because remember, we moved here. You had a job. I didn't. Because I moved here without a job. We make the decision based on you.
Mm-hmm.
And with your job, just dad, until I got mine, that we first of all we didn't have any savings. We're young, right? There's no savings we had.
It was very minimal.
We had some savings, but it's not like to get a house type of savings. And also we just I had no job. How are we gonna get a loan? The loan's not gonna approve us based on your income, and I have no income. I mean, it was just there was no
We will probably
decision.
get a very crappy house in a bad neighborhood.
We we had to make the decision to rent, and I think that's the most viable decision for anybody out
Mm-hmm.
there. When you make the move, rent the first year. I would say it's straight simple. At least rent for a year. Maybe rent for more than that. Probably rent for more than that, right? But at least a year, because that way you get to know the areas. Okay, I like this space. No, I like the other one. You got a little time to start looking around. What you like,
Maybe
what you
you
don't
decide
like.
that you don't even like that city and you want to
Yeah,
move to a different
and
place.
also it gives you time to save up, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna need to save up, which is what we did before we bought the house. We lived in an apartment for how many? 3 years?
2 years.
No, it was three.
Are you sure?
How many apartments were we on?
Two.
So it's probably 2 years. Okay,
Two
yeah, it was
years.
2 years.
1 year per
It was 1 year
apartment.
per apartment. Okay, yeah. So when we got to the second apartment, we started saving. Every month we were making a lot more than because the apartments were cheap, right? We're not paying a lot for the apartment for the monthly in the
Mm-hmm.
apartment. So we were saving a lot, right? Because had more money than we were really needing to pay anything. So we were just saving and saving and saving, and we started building up the our savings to then when we started looking for houses and areas that we like for the house. We had a big chunk to give us a down payment or give us to be able to pay for the closing costs or whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
on the house. So I would suggest, and I would really give you a hint to do that, because if you rent, it'll allow you to also ease up economically for that big change that you're making. Save up some money, get your savings or your savings account a little up, so that whenever you want to make that push, if you want to make the push for a house, you have something stored to a down payment or all this stuff, right? So that would be my recommendation to you guys.
Another thing that you need to consider is what are you going to bring with you when you are moving to this new location. So in our case, it was quite simple. We only brought our clothes. We literally only had luggages. We didn't brought anything else. Not even the toothpaste. I think we bought new toothpaste and toothbrush.
Yeah, that's not just the clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, we just brought the clothing. But for other people and for most people, depending on how old you are and how many things you have, you might need to look for a company a moving company, for
Yeah,
example.
because you got furniture, you get stuff.
Exactly. And you might want to sell some of the items so you don't have to bring all of the stuff with you. You might also might need to give some of the things away or purge and decide what things are going to go to trash and what things are going to be brought to this new location. If you have a bigger family, like if you have kids, that's a little bit more complicated because now you also have to think about these, the minors, the kids, what things are going to be brought to them, changing school, all that, all that stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, that's actually a big change. Obviously, it was not our case, but I would imagine if you have a kids or a couple kids or one kid, and he's already at school, that change from a school to a different school
Mm-hmm.
with a different language and new friends that he has to make. That it's a pretty could be pretty rough for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be rough for the parents as well if it's rough for the kids, because there's a lot of stress that's going to create on them that's created through the kid. So yeah, that would be a that'd be a big one right there. And everything
There
that
might has to
accompany
be
that.
an extremely good reason to move the kids, like a huge
Well,
change
normally
financially, stuff
that's
like
normally
that.
what it is whoever it is, whether it's the mom or the dad, somebody gets a big job offer, lots of money, maybe it's double or triple the money that they were making, and it's like, man, we can't pass this up, right? It's one of those things where you're like, whoa, like we cannot pass this thing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So usually that's what happens. Or the other thing, it could be the other extreme, which is that you're doing so bad, or your country is doing so bad, or wherever you are, it's so bad that you just need to make a change because you can't take it anymore, right? You basically have nothing, which I know friends of mine who live in places where, it's so bad over there.
Mm-hmm.
They can't make food, they can't find food, they can't make money, they can't do anything. So anything for them, any change, it's a good change, right? So it could be also that extreme. But a lot of times for most people who take the leap, at least that I know, it's usually a big financial reason, but it's also obviously that other reason where you're just trying to get out of from a bad situation or a bad place, bad position, and to try to get into a better position.
It is quite hard for those people that are in countries that are very in bad situations or in war, which right now we have multiple countries in war,
Yeah.
to move to. And in this case, is the biggest reason is not even money, it's safety, which is basic way of living. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the basic principles of life.
Safeties would be another one, right? You got to
Mm-hmm.
take a look into that. That's one of the other bullet points you got to look into when you're making a travel. Obviously, when we searched for that, we felt like here would be actually safer than home. So that's one of the things. It was actually, we thought it would probably be better. I mean, sometimes we hear things over there in Puerto Rico and we don't like the news. So that was actually, that would be another change that we thought would be on the better for us as well. Obviously, you got that the negatives, right? Which is you leave friends, you leave family, you leave everything you kind of grew up knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of leave that behind. Not forever, obviously, because you still go back to visit, but you kind of like, you're not there in the
Yeah,
day
it's
to
not the
day.
same.
You're not in the day to day, experiencing, everything like it's not like vacation. You're just living there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different feeling when you're living there, but you're leaving that behind. So your culture, what you're used to. So that's obviously a negative, and that's always going to be a downside because you're never going to be able to replicate that wherever you're going. Not even if you bring some family members, it's still not going to be the same. So you're always gonna. That's always something you're gonna miss. But you have to look into if the positives outweigh the negatives, and if they do, then it will be a good change for you and for your family.
Yes, yes, definitely for sure. So just to continue a little bit on the things to consider when you are doing a big move. Now let's assume that you already figure out where are you going to move. You also need, and you did the purge and you have, all the things that you're going to bring. You also need to plan with different utilities on this new location, water, electricity, internet,
Cable, internet, yeah.
yeah, internet.
Well, cable not so much anymore, but internet, yes.
Yeah, internet for sure. I will say at least those three. Phone, if you don't have,
Oh,
if
but
it's
a
not
lot
the
of
same,
times phone. Well, for us in Puerto Rico, since the phone lines
they are the
are
same.
are are,
Companies are
are
the same.
still used. Well, not the same companies, but a lot of times companies in the U.S. the plans have Mexico and Puerto Rico, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So if you move from any of those countries, a lot of times you don't even have to change your phone
Yeah,
because it's included in most of the plans.
yeah.
So you don't have to really, if you call your family members back, it's not roaming or it's not long distance. So you're not gonna get charged or they're not gonna get
Well,
charged.
we
So
had a very specific
well,
situation.
that was for my job, but it's not like we had to. Like for example, my sister, they've been living in Florida before us, and before that in Philadelphia, and they still have the Puerto Rico phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
My other sister just moved to where is it again? Uh,
Georgia.
no, South Carolina or North. I forgot one of those.
I thought it was Georgia.
I think it was South Carolina. But anyway,
Okay.
she's also with her Puerto
She's in
Rico phone.
Greenville.
So Greenville. I think that's. I don't know. I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure.
I don't know a lot about it. I
I
think
don't
it's
talk
South
that
Carolina.
much
But
with her.
if I said it wrong, please don't mind me. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that she still has a phone number from Puerto Rico. So I don't think that's for us in particular. That's a big change. Obviously, if you come from a different country and a different continent, that'll be something that you're gonna have to get into getting a phone number here and from one of the major providers or something. But yeah, that obviously would be one. The utilities, and you gotta research that before you move. You're like we said, the apartments, the bill, like the phone, the the internet. You're probably gonna have to go to the DMV or whatever and set up a driver's license, for that state or for that place you're moving in, right? Because you're probably gonna want to drive over there eventually. So that's also as it was it's going to work as an ID for that new place you're living in. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to want to have an ID. So that's one of the things you're going to have to go through when you get there. That's one of the things we have you do, and obviously I did it as well later. But it's get our driver's license here in the state of Texas. So and that's going to be another thing that you're probably going to have
And
to
also,
engage
if
in.
you are going to bring your car, you do need to do the process for the car as well. So you need to change
Oh, the
it.
registration, yeah.
Yes.
You need to get the registration in the state.
Yes.
You're gonna have to pay the fees and the taxes and all that. Yeah, right.
And also, just keeping in the same topic, another thing that you need to consider is, well, you're moving to this new location. You need to change the addresses pretty much everywhere from everything that you receive, like credit cards.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a pain in the ass too,
No.
because a lot of times you have all these addresses that they just keep mailing you there,
Yes.
and you got to change it.
Yes.
Hopefully, luckily now, if you tell your the post office that you're moving to a different location, they just automatically move, like, when they send mail to that location, they automatically redistribute it to the new location. I think it can work like that. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it's forever or they do it for like a year or something until they give you time to make the change for every single thing
Yes.
you have to change, right?
Do they charge something for it?
I don't know, but I remember I called it when we moved to the second apartment, or from the second apartment to the house. I did make a thing I did talk to the postal office, and I did get that. I remember I did get all those letters to be resent to the new address, our address. Obviously, well, if you're moving newly to a place, you don't really have to change your utility or anything because you're gonna have to do everything new. But if you were moving from a different state to another state, or from a different city to a different city, from one city to a different city in the same state, you're gonna have to change in utilities companies and maybe change address with the utilities or all that stuff. So you might not have to do the whole process from the start, but you're gonna have to change who your providers are and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think if all of that information is great, in terms of all the things that you need to do when you're, moving to this new location. But we don't talk much about what if you have kids. If you have kids, you need to consider other things. Like, for example, well, you're moving the kids from one school to another school. What is going to be the new school for this kid, for these kids? And then search, are they moving to a private school? Are they moving to a public school? Then what if it's a public school? What is the public school that is moving to? What is the paperwork that you need to send
Yeah.
for that new school? Do you need to have conversations with the facility? Stuff like that you need to consider as well. If there are babies, then I will say that's a little bit easier.
Well, obviously,
But
if that's the case, you should also probably check into who's going to be your one big one. Probably is going to be the healthcare provider.
yes,
If
that's
you
a
don't have
huge one.
if your company doesn't provide you with health insurance,
Yeah, that
you're
was
gonna
okay.
have to look into
actually.
health insurance,
Mm-hmm.
specifically if you have kids, because you know how they got to go to the doctor almost every time. So that would be another thing. health insurance, all the main things that we kind of take for granted that we have all the time. But when we start traveling, we're moving, we're like, holy shit, there was so much stuff
Mm-hmm.
we have to go through. Like right now, I probably don't think about all this stuff, but if I were have to move, I would like, whoa, what about this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what about this one? And I'll be like, going like, wow, it's too much stuff that we have to check, right? Luckily, again, for us, when we moved young, we moved like we were probably like 26 or 27. I don't know,
Yeah, somewhere there.
somewhere around there, 25, 26. When we moved, we didn't have mostly anything. So the transition was a lot easier. We didn't have to, you know, check a lot of these boxes.
Yes.
So it made it easier because then you just start scratch in a new place. So everything you start to get everything. Oh, I need this when you're already there. So, oh, okay, I'll grab it. Oh, I need this. Okay, I'm already here.
Oh,
Oh, I
wait.
grab it. So it's a lot easier than all of a sudden you have to change everything all of a sudden.
And in our case, was very easy as well because we were young. We were literally starting.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It was just a matter of where are we going to start? Because we have to start regardless.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, okay, where are we going to do? And
That's why
I knew for sure it was not going to be Puerto Rico.
But that's why I said when we started the podcast today that it's completely different when you've already got a big family and you got to move and you already got a lot of things set in where you are and you got to move all that stuff or the house, furniture, whatever it is. It's a much bigger change than if you're just starting out straight out of college. Boom, I'm going to go to a different state. I'm going to go to a different country. It's a lot easier, the process, than if you're already set
Yes.
and you just got to all of a sudden go.
Yes.
That's a much bigger change.
That's an even bigger. I'm just talking about the whole medical situation. And I was thinking, what if we are moving with an older person that has multiple conditions that we need to make sure that all of that information, all of that data from all the records from the old doctor have to move to the new doctor on top of that.
And hopefully a lot of times that's good about today is that with the technology, it's a lot easier to like send this information from hospital to hospital or whatever.
I think they usually charge something.
Yeah. And one last thing or one more thing, in our case it was, but a lot of people also have this, you gotta consider what you're gonna do with the pets.
Oh yes.
If you have pets, are you gonna take them with you? Some people don't want to take them with them, so then they just have somebody in where they are adopt them, stay with them, or maybe they give it to somebody else, a friend or somebody who wanted your dog or wanted a dog, or who's really friendly with your dog and they want to stay with it. I mean, because you don't want to make the change and have a dog with you or pets, because that obviously complicates things. In our case, we were young, so we just took our dogs. They were kind of the babies, so we took them, and we didn't have a lot of things with us. But maybe if we have to move now, the dogs are, they're always they're obviously something that you love, but they're also give you more headaches.
Just to stop you there, the dogs are coming with us, regardless what Enrique say. They are coming with us.
But I'm saying, I know, but I'm just saying that for other people, and that there's a lot that do give their dogs away to a friend or somebody else because they feel like they can't deal with all that they have to do plus the dogs or the pets in the way.
Yes.
Or sometimes they just leave the dog, and once they're settled, they go and then they get them sent to them, right?
Yeah.
But they leave them with somebody for like the first 3 months or something. Okay, Linda. So that'll be all. Or there's anything else you wanna cover here?
No, I think that covers pretty much everything that I have in my notes. But obviously, this is our situation, and we try to cover some of the things outside of our situation. But your situation might be different. So make sure that on top of these podcasts, you do a little bit more research because every situation is different. So just make sure that you cover your particular needs during your big move process. And I wish you, of course, really good luck on it.
Okay, so like I said, that would be our recommendations for when you make a big move or a big change. But like Linda said, you do what is best for you and your family and what's the best decision for yourself. All the best of the luck when you do that. Stay tuned for next Wednesday. We'll be talking about, I think, how to prep or how to financially prep to get a house or to buy a house, get into the house market in today's age with how changes are going, the inflation,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So I think that'd be a good little nugget of information and a good subject for next week. So
Yes.
next Wednesday, stay tuned for that. As always, we want to thank you guys for listening to us. Check our Instagram at Honey Let's Do a Podcast. Check us every Wednesday. Stay safe. Thanks for watching and for listening. Check us out on Apple Music and Amazon Music, and what's the other one? Spotify.
Yes.
And you guys have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.